Hi again then guys, and welcome to the 97th episode of B-Road Ballers on Gran Turismo. In this particular episode we're featuring Gran Turismo 6 and a vehicle which, first of all, if you've even clicked on this episode, congratulations and thank you for that, because it's not exactly a car which many people care about. Personally, I, funnily enough, do like this car, but it's more because of the power plant than the vehicle itself. It's an electric car, not a hybrid, a full EV, and of course it's the Nissan Leaf. This is one of the relatively few hatchbacks in general on Gran Turismo which has virtually no tuning options in terms of power. Now, you have 107 horsepower to be working with, which is not too bad considering it's a mass production EV, and in real life this car actually has pretty decent acceleration. It's a quite quick car compared to other lower end hatchbacks. But that being said, it's not a performance hatch, not by any stretch of the imagination. The funny thing about that is though, and I know many of you guys agree with this, there are certain vehicles, such as the Nissan Leaf, the Toyota Prius is also a perfect example, which are categorically not great performance cars and aren't even designed to be, but they still have these strange little fan bases who just love the cars because of how silly it is to take something like that and have it on a racing game. And to be honest, that's one of the reasons, or one of the things, that I've always loved about Gran Turismo as a franchise. They've always included these cars which don't need to be on the game. Not necessarily just old race cars, but normal, everyday road cars which don't have anywhere near the kind of performance potential that most of the other cars in the game have, but they're just there because why not? They're normal cars. That adds the realism factor to the game, to think to yourself, well, yeah, I see these every day. It adds that personal quality to the game when you can drive a vehicle that maybe you actually own, or you see, or you know people who own. And there's just something strangely appealing about that. Now, that doesn't work for everyone, of course, and although I have featured this in the Dark series, it's not a vehicle, realistically speaking, that most people will find much racing use out of. One main reason is because you cannot surpass 95 miles per hour. That's kind of a problem. Even for a vehicle that only has a 349 pp maximum tune level, it's still going to struggle to win races. Now, being an electric car, the advantage is that that top speed remains the same, regardless of how much you restrict the power. It just takes a little bit longer to get there. So, in that respect, it's actually not bad, because you can get it down to around 280 pp, and it still has a 95 mile per hour, or roughly 95 mile per hour top speed. That is actually potentially useful. But again, how many people actually race at that lower PP level? But for those who do, which myself included, I like that kind of thing, ultra slow racing, it's certainly a car to bear in mind. Now, unfortunately, due to the fact that battery technology is still relatively primitive in the broad scheme of things compared to what we need it to be, the car is heavy, and the battery pack is one of the main reasons for that. It weighs 1,216 kilos, and that's even with the full weight loss package. So horsepower per tonne isn't exactly monstrous. It produces 88. However, one thing that is pretty good, and this isn't too surprising to anyone who knows anything about electric cars, the torque is pretty good. And it's very accessible. Electric cars, of course, produce 100% torque at 0 RPM, and this car does so. 207 foot-pounds is its peak, but it produces that at 1,000 RPM. Now, the performance that it has is not quick. As we already said, 95 miles per hour flat out. The acceleration isn't that remarkable either, but one potentially good part of its performance is that cars that are very slow, in a similar way to something, for instance, like the Ford Model T on Gran Turismo 4, and some others as well, is that because they're so slow, even if they're big and heavy, they tend to have quite good handling, because the performance is so slow that you can take corners basically foot to the floor 9 times out of 10, and that's definitely the case with this car. It's front engine, front wheel drive, so the car literally pulls itself around corners, and although, as you can see in this video, if you give it a little bit of camber, or 6 degrees in my case, and have stiff springs, you can quite easily flip this car over. But if you drive it properly and tune it properly, not having stance and overly stiff suspension, it can fly around tight circuits like the GT Arena for instance. So realistically speaking, it's not a vehicle which everyone should buy. Categorically not, and I'm not going to say that it is, especially with a 40 grand price tag. That's the kind of money that you'd pay for something like a Golf R32 on Gran Turismo, so of course not. If you're looking to race it, don't. If you're looking for fun, or if you're looking for an oddball vehicle, and personally I do use this car sometimes online for cruise events, that is where the magic lies. It's got that oddball cheese factor that some people, myself included, do enjoy. If you're a fan of vehicles like the Toyota Prius, say the touring car version for instance, or the Jay Leno tank car, the Chaparral 2J, those kind of weird vehicles, then chances are you might just like driving this car. But don't expect the world from it, obviously. And that's it overall for this particular review, so I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.